Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into something absolutely fascinating, decoding the psychology of wealth. We're unpacking the source material to really figure out why some people build these massive, lasting financial empires, while others just kind of stay trapped on that financial hamster wheel for decades. And hey, spoiler alert here, it is not just about the math. It's really about transforming your daily habits and totally changing how you process the world around you.
So you gotta ask yourself, is wealth really just luck? Or maybe raw talent? Or just endless hard work? Society basically conditions us with this super simple equation, right? Work more hours, make more money. But honestly, relying purely on grinding it out or just crossing your fingers for a lucky break, that's exactly what keeps people stuck. The reality we're exploring today goes way deeper. Becoming wealthy isn't just about what you earn, it's fundamentally about how you think.
All right, let's jump right into part one. Wealth begins in the mind. This is the core psychological framework.
Moving right along to part two, time versus building assets. This is where the fundamental shift really happens.
Because look, the absolute biggest difference between someone who's financially trapped and someone who's a wealthy builder, it isn't the size of their paycheck, it's their focus. The average person is out there trading their time for money, always asking, how can I make more money this month? But wealthy people, they realize time is incredibly finite. So instead of just trading hours for a single check, they're asking a totally different question. How can I build something that keeps paying me for years? They focus their daily energy on building systems.
Think of a standard job kind of like carrying a bucket of water from the river to your house, right? You get paid for that bucket today, but man, if you stop carrying, you go thirsty. The wealth mindset is completely different. It's about spending a little time every single day building a pipe. Sure, it takes way longer, and yeah, you might not see the water flowing immediately, but once that pipe is finally built, the water just keeps flowing, even while you sleep.
Which brings us to part three, everyday choices and delayed gratification. So how do we actually build that pipe? Well, it all boils down to future-oriented thinking. Psychologists basically define this as the ability to sacrifice short-term comfort for a long-term reward. Most people, they spend their money to look rich right now. Buying things they don't even really need to impress neighbors they don't even really like. But wealthy thinkers, they're perfectly fine living way below their means early on because they actually want to be rich, not just look the part. Let's apply this to, say, a random Tuesday. You've had a super stressful day, you're scrolling on your phone, and boom, you feel the sudden massive urge to buy some expensive gadget just to feel a bit better. Look, that emotional urge is completely normal, but here's where the wealthy habit kicks in, the pause. You actively separate your stress from your financial logic. In that brief pause, you're choosing long-term freedom over a fleeting dopamine hit. Doing this daily, that's what breaks the cycle of trying to fill emotional voids with just stuff. Okay, part four, pursuing opportunities over fearing failure. So our brains naturally want to avoid whatever we subconsciously fear. For most folks, that means being totally paralyzed by the fear of losing money, or maybe looking foolish, or just facing uncertainty. So what do? They avoid opportunities entirely. But the wealthy have successfully reprogrammed this whole response. They really don't fear failure. What they fear is missing out on a strategic opportunity simply because they were too scared to try. There's this great concept from the sources. Comfort rarely creates wealth. Growth usually begins in uncomfortable situations. Now, this doesn't mean wealthy people are just out there being reckless gamblers. Absolutely not. It means they accept that literally every worthwhile reward involves some calculated risk. Stepping out of your comfort zone isn't about making some dramatic, one-time leap off a cliff. It's actually a daily habit of just pushing your own boundaries.
All right, let's look at part five, creating a wealthy daily environment.
You really can't force a new mindset if your everyday environment is constantly pulling you backward. The sources highlight some key daily habits for curating your surroundings. First up, adopt lifelong learning because knowledge is leverage. Second, swap out passive entertainment for strategic information, like actually consume content that improves the decisions you make. Third, fiercely protect your emotional logic. And finally, audit your circle. If you spend years hanging around negativity, your own thinking shrinks. You've got to intentionally surround yourself with people who normalize success.
And finally, part 6, becoming a wealth builder.
Ultimately, creating true wealth requires a massive shift in your core identity. Let's look at the stark contrast here. The victim identity? It constantly blames the economy, the boss, or circumstances, basically because nothing is their fault, nothing is in their control, and that practically guarantees stagnation. The wealth identity, on the other hand, takes absolute total ownership. They ask, okay, what can I control? What can I build right now? This kind of extreme ownership forces immediate action and literally manufactures new opportunities out of thin air.
When you genuinely adopt that builder identity, you unlock patience. And that leads us to the absolute magic of compound growth. Modern society is always screaming for instant cash, right? But wealth builders know that investments, real skills, and solid businesses all take time to grow. Compound growth is really just taking those small, smart daily choices we just talked about and repeating them over and over for years until they yield massive results. Patience isn't just some nice virtue, it is a literal financial strategy.
So the overarching takeaway from our explainer today is super clear. Real wealth starts psychologically, long before it ever appears in your bank account. Building assets instead of just trading your time, actively delaying gratification, taking calculated risks, and owning your outcomes. All of this proves that wealth is constructed in the mind first, and once that clicks, it changes every single choice you make.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important question. What future are you choosing with the habits you repeat today? Remember, your financial future isn't a lottery ticket. It's the exact sum of your repeated daily choices. I really hope this explainer has empowered you to step back, audit your daily routines, and start building your own wealth identity right now. Thanks so much for joining me, and hey, keep building those positive habits.